So the new budget has just been announced. Let's look through the most important changes. Point by point, I've made myself some notes. I will be looking into the key changes that this budget brings. So first of all, there is a freeze in tax thresholds. That means that more and more people will be pushed into the higher rate thresholds. But the good thing about it is that despite many people thinking that if you cross the tax threshold, the higher tax applies to all your earnings, that is not true. Only the earnings above the tax threshold will be charged higher rate of tax. Nevertheless, higher thresholds together with raising wages, with inflation, that means that more and more people will be paying higher taxes on their wages. So despite earning more gross, the net pay will be impacted by the thresholds not moving upwards. The Chancellor announced a new tax for electric and hybrid car owners. That tax will work on a per mile basis. It will be paid annually, but the amount of the tax paid will depend on the number of miles driven in a year. It will be 3 pence per mile for electric vehicles and 1.5 pence per mile for hybrid vehicles, meaning that for the driver who does 10,000 miles per year, that will be additional £300 tax for electric car owners and £150 tax for hybrid car owners. The minimum wage will increase to £12.71 per hour, starting from April 2026. From April 2026, there will be a major change in welfare payments. Currently, benefits are limited to 2 children per family. What it means is that if someone has 3 or more children, no additional benefits were paid. But that is about to change. From April 2026, it will again be possible to claim benefits on a third child or any further subsequent children. That will increase government spending. From April 2027, there will be a change in how much money you can invest in ISAs accounts. Cash ISAs will be limited to £12,000 a year. You will still have £20,000 limit. However, additional £8,000 can be invested only in those ISAs that are connected with investment, such as stocks and shares ISAs. There will be new tax introduced on properties worth more than 2 million. There is an increase of a so-called gambling tax, so a tax on online gambling. But the tax increase that I'm worried most about, and I think will have quite a big impact, is an increase of 2 percentage points of a tax on rental income, savings and dividends. Unfortunately, despite what was Chancellor saying, that she wants similar treatment of people who pay different types of taxes, I understand where she's coming from. She's saying that currently landlord is paying lower tax on the same earnings comparing to someone who is employed and going to a regular job. Yeah, that's true, but taxes on rental income will likely impact rental prices. So at the end of the day, it will be those ordinary workers who will pay it, those who rent properties. I can't imagine that the landlord will just take the money out of thin air and just pay extra additional tax. It will have to be compensated in rental takings. This is not a good information. Also, dividend tax. Unfortunately, it brings us into the territory where a running limited company can be more costly comparing to being self-employed. I don't think that this is what the government wants. We don't have a level playing field here. If the taxes are only increased for limited company owners in comparison to self-employed people, we are getting into the dangerous territory which discourages people from growing their companies. I'm personally against those increases, but on the good side, they weren't as bad as predicted. So we have increased taxes and the new taxes introduced, such as a very big novelty in the UK, a tax on a per mile basis for the usage of your car. That's something very new. But there are also other things in the budget. Some of them are quite good. So let's look at them. Well, we have the promise of cutting down energy bills by slashing or actually withdrawing, scrapping the eco-energy scheme. There is a promise that that will save on average £150 for an average UK household. The fuel duty is to be frozen until September 2026. This is important as without having this fuel duty increase frozen, we would see increase of the price of the petrol and diesel, the gas stations. That will affect the price of all the consumer products as well in the UK. We have quite an interesting point mentioned by the Chancellor, which wasn't actually picked up by the media that much. She mentioned that the Class 2 national insurance voluntary contributions for those living abroad will be abolished. Well, I don't think that many people in the UK are aware that people who left the United Kingdom weren't working in the United Kingdom anymore and worked abroad were entitled to pay voluntary contributions of just £180 a year, and those contributions allowed them to increase the number of working years needed to qualify them for the state pension. So in simple words, someone was paying £180 and then got the pension higher by over £300 a year at current rates. And I do believe that this was kind of a loophole, and I do agree that this loophole should have been closed. It should have been closed earlier. I'm actually glad that the government finally noticed that it is a little bit of a joke that someone could have stayed in the UK for 3 years, pay the contributions for 3 years, leave, never ever have anything to do with the United Kingdom, and then even qualify for a full pension by paying 32 years of voluntary contributions at such a minimal rate. So that's, I think it's a good thing. That is, I think, something good, and it's great that the government finally noticed and closed that loophole. There is a Motability scheme in the UK. So that scheme allows people with disabilities and access to subsidized cars. The Chancellor promised that it won't be any longer possible to acquire luxury cars. I also agree with that. I think that help with mobility is absolutely needed, but it shouldn't be abused in the fact that some people who do qualify for those benefits can buy very expensive luxury cars, and that is subsidized by the taxpayer. So that is a good news. Chancellor also mentioned that there's going to be additional funding for apprenticeship programs and trainings for those under 25. This program will allow small and medium businesses to take on apprentices under the age of 25, and that is meant to be absolutely free for the small businesses. Great, good news. That means that young people will be able to acquire practical skills, and also small businesses can get a helping hand from new starters. Lower business rates were promised for retail, hospitality and leisure. For those businesses in those areas with small premises, they will have their business rates cut. Great, that will help the high street. At the same time, higher business rates will be introduced for the larger businesses, like really big major players, including large foreign companies that have huge warehouses in the UK. I think that's fair. I think that is putting back fair play in between small high street retailers and those big online sellers that can undercut the costs. The Chancellor mentioned also one more interesting point. Well, she promised that all the packages coming to the UK will now be subject to customs duty. At the moment, there was that kind of a loophole that packages of low value could have been sent to the UK customers without collecting taxes at the entry. This was massively abused by some large companies, especially in recent years, from Far East countries. Very often they were subsidized by the governments over there to provide those low prices. This was undercutting local businesses. It's hard to compete with products that are super cheap, that are produced without all those costs that the businesses face here in the UK, without those labor costs, taxation and so on. That's unfair that the companies can sell their products without proper taxation. I'm absolutely for it. I'm absolutely for this change. This has been introduced in the USA and had a really positive impact on the local economy, on the local businesses. I even have a client who was actually about to close down his business as soon as that rule was implemented. From now on, his business is flourishing. So if you really want to make sure that our local economy is sound, resilient, and it's growing, and I think that it's great role that the government, I mean, it's great what the government is doing to protect the interest of the local people, not to allow, not to allow unfair play on the market. So that is the step in the right direction. Also, the Chancellor promised that rail fares will be frozen for the next year, as well as the prescription payments. So there are some good things in the budget. Just to summarize, we have increased taxation, we have some new taxes, but it's not as bad as it was predicted. We have some good things in this budget. We have some that I even personally don't agree with. We will see how it will impact the economy and what will be impact in the United Kingdom in the coming months and years. In some other times, it would be a bitter pill, to be honest, but an easy pill to swallow. In those times that we are in now, I have my own personal concerns. I see lots of people leaving the UK. Usually those people are either with capital or they are entrepreneurs. They have their own businesses. I can see the wave of businesses closing down, people moving abroad. And to be frank, I'm not surprised. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Feel free to ask questions. If you would like me to talk more about any particular subject, I'm happy to do so. I'm looking forward to hear from you, and thank you for your attention today. Goodbye.